I call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee on May 14th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We have everyone here with us tonight. First item of business is approval of minutes, the draft minutes of April 23rd, 2024 Finance meeting. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Fantastic. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 3, public appearances for non-agenda items. No one's online and it doesn't look like anyone's in chambers for public comments, so we can move on to item 4, Finance Director report.
Hello, everyone. There we go. So first included in the packet is the annual ARPA report that we had to file with the Department of Treasury. So on page 11 of the packet, that's kind of the total summary. So the city received about $3.2 million in the ARPA funding. As of March 31st of 2024, which was when this reporting period ended, we had actually spent about 1.8 of that money, and we're under contract and or spent 2.6. So there is still an amount of money that needs to be spent or under contract. We have the rest of the year to figure that all out, and we're making sure to stay on top of it. But this is the report that was required to be filed. The other thing that we noted with this report is they allowed an exception for the single audit requirements. So since the only grant that kicked us over that threshold to require a single audit is this ARPA funding, instead of doing a single audit, we can do the alternative compliance examination engagement for the ARPA funding. And so we're making that election. It's a much more streamlined audit. We'll get that done probably in the fall. And I'll pause in case there's questions before I talk about the rest of my report. Oh, okay. Other things happening. So the maintenance of effort, remember talking about that during the budget time? The DOR, the state put out those forms. So need to spend some time figuring out strategy and how best to complete those. Those are due July 1st.
And that's for the shared revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So it's maintenance of effort requirements for public safety in particular, police, fire, and EMS.
And you've gotten guidance from?
We finally got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And the report's due July 1st. So we've got some things to figure out, but at least the guidance is out. That's good.
Great.
The CIP is in full swing, so had another follow-up meeting with the mayor just this week. We still have about a month before you guys will see that document as the mayor's proposed CIP, but that's in progress. The annual audit for 2023, we expect to issue that on Friday. We still have to do some of the other filings that are required, but that audit should be done soon. And then the next Finance Committee meeting is when the auditors will come out and share the results with all of you as the audit committee here at the Finance Committee meeting. And then debt issuance is the other big one. So today we had Moody's out in order to do our annual or our rating call associated with the debt issuance. I think it went really, really well. Looking forward to seeing what the rating will be. I suspect it will be similar to what we've seen in the past, but it'll be good to have that confirmation. And then at the next meeting is when we'll do our sale of that debt. So you'll see Greg again in a couple of weeks when we do that also. So working through all of those details and those reports as well. So lots of things kind of happening all at once.
Wonderful. Lots of updates today. Any questions? All right, we can go ahead and move on to the review of bills. Item 5A, detailed review of checks for $10,000 and above, April 16th to 30th, 2024, totaling $1,129,589.48. Any questions? Moving on to item 5B, detailed review of all checks issued, checks 126811 to 126877, April 16th to the 30th, 2024, totaling $1,229,832.83. Questions? Item 5C, detailed review of ACH payments for $10,000 and above, April 1st to 30th, 2024, totaling $613,823.12. Questions? Item 5D, detailed review of all ACH payments April 1st to the 30th, 2024, totaling $623,902.80. Questions? All right, nice and fast. Moving on to action items. 6A, Resolution R1124, approving contract with Cintas for uniform, towel, and mat services for Public Works Maintenance Facility and Crews. This is postponed from the April 23rd meeting.
I move approval.
Motion by Alder Wheeler. Who's going to speak to this?
I think Tim will, if he's willing. Thank you, Tim.
Sure. The Public Works Maintenance Facility has been using Cintas to provide and clean shop towels and floor mats and uniform services since 2012. The city is currently under a previously signed contract with Cintas until 2027. Cintas is now able to offer Omnia cooperative pricing, which requires a 3-year contract that would replace our current contract. The Omnia cooperative price structure with a 3-year contract saves the city approximately $200 per week for uniform services from what is currently paid. There is sufficient funds available in the general fund for streets, parks, and utility to cover the annual expense. We're looking for approval of the 3-year agreement with Cintas in the amount of $74,369.62. And with that, does anyone have any questions?
Excited to finally get this one checked off. That's great. Sounds like a great service. I'm glad we can save some money for it. So thanks for looking into that. All in favor of resolution?
You're welcome.
Awesome. All in favor of resolution R1124, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to 6B, resolution R4624, approving the grant application and requirements for the 2024 Urban Forestry Inflation Reduction Act grant.
I'll move approval of R4624.
Moved by Alder Jetzer, and I believe Scott's going to start with this one.
I can do that, thank you. This is a part of the grant application. A resolution is required, so this is that resolution. The title of the project through the IRA grant application is Canopy Renovation in City of Fitchburg's disadvantaged communities. And actually, this is a 3-year grant. If we're successful, we would receive, and it helps with the objective management types of activities, including tree inventory, planting trees within specific disadvantaged neighborhoods in the community. And as I mentioned, it would be a 3-year program with the goal of trying to reach our canopy goal of 30% tree canopy before 2050. But just to clarify that these dollars could only be utilized in census blocks that are included in the grant area. Well, the total grant is about $170,500.
Scott, what do you think is the chances of us getting the grant?
Well, I think they're fairly good, Gabriella, but certainly with, there's a lot of dollars there, so hopefully I would think it's a pretty solid application. I know Anna did a good job with it, so hopefully we'll be successful.
Yeah, we've got a good forestry management program and Tree City of the World now, so hopefully we got a good, strong application. Any questions? Bill?
Scott, is this free money or is this like an 80-20 split? Is there a local match?
Nope. And actually the local match is just going to be the in-kind service of the city forester, which is a little bit different. It's, there's no such thing as free money, but, part of that 170 is our staff time match. But to your point, they pay for the contractors, they pay for the trees, they pay for the planting of the trees and all of those kinds of things. So it's a really a good deal, actually.
Wow.
Ballpark, how many trees is this going to get us, do you think?
Well, $300 a tree.
Okay, so 500 to 600 trees?
Oh, I would say, yes, 150,000, yeah, I would say. It's a safe bet.
I don't see any other questions. So all in favor of resolution R 4624, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to our next item, resolution R 7024, approving a contract between the City of Fitchburg and Sustain Dane to participate in and fund the Efficiency Navigator Program with funding from the city's Affordable Housing Fund.
I move approval.
Motion by Alder Wheeler. And are we going to, Joyce, are we going to hear from you?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I have a really crummy camera on my computer. As all of you are probably aware, we are working on the housing implementation of the affordable housing dollars through the TIDS. And we have reached out to Sustain Dane to participate in the Efficiency Navigator program, which will identify those properties that are in need of energy efficient upgrades for what we consider our NOAA, which is naturally occurring affordable housing. Our target will be at 80% or less of Dane County median income. What Sustain Dane will do is they'll come in and they'll manage the project. They will do the outreach and assessments of the property, and then they'll contract with Elevate Energy to actually do the updates to the properties. And we focused on the four healthy neighborhoods as part of our one of our meetings. We actually went out and started identifying some of the properties that we would like to really get engaged with the program. So the $80,000 contract is just for the beginning part of the project, which is the assessment, outreach, and then we'll be coming back after we have projects for approval.
Questions?
Joyce, how much money do you think we're going to spend, like, all together? Do we have any idea about that yet?
Yeah, we had Claire and John put together kind of a budget for us. You know, it's going to be based upon who engages with the program and who doesn't. Right now we have $390,000 set aside to do the updates, but we have been working with the city of Madison, applying on some joint grants. So we're hoping that we have some success with that, and we can maybe use these dollars for something else and utilize some of the dollars that we applied for with Madison.
Wonderful. Good way to kind of spread out that money, make it go longer. I assume well, I'll skip that. But any other questions? All right. All in favor of resolution R 7024, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Joyce.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited to get this project started.
All right. Moving on to the next item, R 7024 and Plan Commission Resolution PCR 0624. Resolution creating tax incremental district number 18, approving its project plan and establishing its boundaries, City of Fitchburg, Wisconsin. Do I need to read the other Plan Commission? Okay. Can I get a motion?
I'll move approval of R 7224.
Moved by Alder Jetzer, and I'll send it to city staff.
Sure. Good evening. I'm going to give an overview of the TID creation. The presentation I'm providing this evening is just a summary. There's no new content. It summarizes what was in the project plan. But I'll begin by just kind of providing an overview of the TID creation process. So the process is described by statute. So the initial convening of the Joint Review Board is the beginning of the TID creation process. That it consists of all the other taxing jurisdictions and a public member. They hold an organizational meeting. Public hearing is required before the Plan Commission. That occurred back on April 16th. They passed a resolution to create the district. Then we're at the next step later this evening, which is Common Council consideration of the creation of the district. There's a separate resolution for Common Council action. If the council chooses to create the district, it will be brought back to the Joint Review Board for their final consideration. That is scheduled for May 30th. Just to quickly recap how a tax incremental finance district works. At the time a TIF district is created, all of the parcels within the proposed boundary of the district have an existing taxable value. That will be as of January 1 of 2024 in the case of this district. All of the taxing jurisdictions will continue to collect their share of tax revenue on that existing value, just as they do presently. So there's no change in that current property tax distribution. The financial benefit of a TIF district to the city is when that value increases, either due to appreciation or more commonly due to redevelopment or development activities within the district. That increase in value over the base value of the district is called the incremental value, and the city retains all of the tax revenue from that incremental value to pay for project expenses within the TIF district. So the property tax rate is the same for properties whether they are within a district or outside of a TIF district. Again, it's just where that property tax revenue gets distributed. So all the taxing jurisdictions will get their share of tax revenue on the base value of the property at the time of district creation, and the city will retain the county, school district, technical college, and city portion of the tax revenue generated on that increase in value, the incremental value, to pay for expenses within the district. Next, let's walk through the legal requirements that have to be satisfied in order to create a new tax incremental finance district. The first test is called the 12% valuation test, and what that means is the incremental value of all existing TID districts in the city plus the base value of this proposed new district cannot exceed 12% of the city's total equalized value. So when we do that calculation based on the most current valuation information available, the city has about 5.7% of capacity towards that 12% limit. So the city is well under that 12% limit, which means you legally have the capacity to create new TIF districts or add territory to existing districts if necessary. Next, we'll get into the particulars of proposed TID district number 18. We included kind of a summary of the map that was included in the project plan. Really, the primary purpose of this TID district is to pay for public infrastructure improvements or development incentives as determined by the city. This is a rehabilitation TIF district, which means at least 50% of the area has been identified in need of rehabilitation or conservation. Several parcels within the proposed district are part of a former quarry site. So the main objective of this district is remediation of those parcels and putting in the necessary infrastructure improvements or development incentives as needed to kind of address kind of the lack of infrastructure and to bring those parcels to a higher and better use. So that's in general the overall objective of the district. Portions of this district are presently located within TID district number 9. On this map, the parcels in purple are the ones that are presently in TID 9, but instead would be incorporated into TID district number 18 if this district is created. Under state law, a parcel cannot be located within 2 TID districts simultaneously. So what this means is any incremental value that occurs on these parcels shaded in purple, that value would now go to TID number 18 instead of to TID district number 9. So it's a way to kind of encompass some existing parcels and continue to redevelop the overall area, but bring some parcels into the new district, which also allows more time for those parcels to develop. In terms of the findings that we made to kind of satisfy the rehabilitation finding that's required by statute. So we list all 10 parcels that are proposed to be included within the district. As I mentioned, there's infrastructure that's necessary to kind of promote redevelopment of these particular parcels. So one of the criteria for a rehabilitation district is the installation, construction, or reconstruction of streets, utilities, parks, or playgrounds, or other improvements kind of necessary to accomplish urban renewal objectives. So again, a lot of those sites are kind of former quarry sites, so we've identified in conjunction with city staff that at least 65% of the area of the district meets that rehabilitation criteria, which is in excess of the minimum of 50%. The project plan includes kind of two references to project costs. There's general narrative in the project plan that describes all the types of TID-eligible expenses as they are laid out in state statute. And then the city has further provided a project list that provides a more detailed expectation of how TID funds could be expended. The project plan is written deliberately to provide the city with some flexibility to react to changing circumstances without having to formally amend the project plan. So this TID district has a maximum life of 27 years. So while the city has identified some particular infrastructure projects and potential development incentives that it may undertake within the district, the plan is written to provide flexibility that the city can reallocate money between projects identified or undertake other TID-eligible expenses broadly described in the narrative as circumstances change. So it's intended to give the city the ability to react to specific development proposals as they come forward. The approval of a project plan does not give the city the authorization or it's not formally approving any of those project costs listed in the project plan. Those all still require separate common council approval, so any infrastructure improvement has to be approved through a normal process. Any borrowing that would be necessary for a TID project has to go through normal approvals, and then any development agreement that, or any development incentive that is offered requires a development agreement to be approved by common council. So the project plan puts the TIF tool in place, identifies what projects are TID eligible. The city, over the management and implementation of the district over time, can determine what projects are TIF feasible as you determine to implement the objectives of the project plan. So the city has a very good practice and history in place of really making sure that you match the pace of investment in the district with the pace of development. So you're making the investment to coincide with development that's occurring to increase the likelihood that there's sufficient tax revenue to pay for the costs. So the city also requires development pro forma reviews when developers ask for development incentives to make sure that the request is appropriate and that the city is not over-enriching the return that the developer is going to receive on that project. So there's specifics in the plan, but also general references to certain types of projects that the city has flexibility to implement. So in terms of that specific project list, we included the detailed list here that's also located within the project plan. So there's various road, curb, sidewalk, and path improvements, utility improvements, water, sewer, and stormwater, also some other street reconfigurations, some bus shelter and commerce bus shelter improvements, and then an allowance again for development incentives and interest expense on long-term debt. So the total amount of project costs identified are approximately $37 million, and then there's additional $555,000 of project costs that fall within a half-mile radius of the district boundary, which means they can be a TID-eligible expense if they are identified in the project plan. So again, this provides kind of the menu of kind of some of the initial priorities that the city has identified. If other project costs come up that, you know, and other projects on this list aren't needed, the city has the flexibility to adjust those priorities as needed and work within the overall project cost allowance identified in the plan. The map that we've identified is just a corresponding to the project list. Each project identified had an identification number, so a requirement in the project plan is a map showing the approximate location of where those improvements are going to be located. So in terms of the financial analysis that we've included in the project plan, this is really intended to illustrate the full build-out potential of the district. It is just an illustration. The city updates its cash flow projections for each TIF district annually based on actual development and expenses occurred. but we'll go through kind of the development assumptions, but working with staff who's had further conversations with developers and property owners within the district. There's a potential for approximately $155.8 million of incremental value. If that value is achieved, it's projected to generate about $48.3 million in tax revenue over 27 years. And the overall cash flow model is, again, the illustration of the full potential. Projected closure is in 2046. So within each of the parcels identified in the project plan, staff had conversations with the developers and landowners about potential development occurring within the district. So we've kind of estimated that increase in taxable value based on that development potential, based on construction years 2024 through 2040. So again, this is very much an illustration. It's a projection. Before the city undertakes project costs, we always look at each project on a case-by-case basis to estimate the incremental value and determine the appropriate level of TIF assistance necessary for that project. Again, this shows the estimated tax increment projected over the 27-year life of the district, estimated at approximately $48.3 million. And then the overall cash flow projection, again, just kind of an illustration, shows the tax increment coming in to pay for expenses. We've shown hypothetical financings for infrastructure improvements as that incremental value gets generated. MRO is a municipal revenue obligation. That's kind of the legal term for a development incentive that can be offered. Typically, the city provides development incentives of what's called a pay-as-you-go basis, meaning the developer is paid out increment annually from tax revenue generated from their particular project. If their project doesn't generate enough tax increment to cover the full amount of their incentive, the city is under no obligation to make up that shortfall. So it kind of shifts some of that risk from the city onto the developer. And then we show some cash financing of capital projects as increment is available, and then an allowance for just ongoing annual administrative and staff costs as well. So again, this is very much, again, an illustration of the full build-out potential of the district, but projecting the district could be in position to close early. So again, the overall objectives of the district are to kind of promote some redevelopment, particularly on some of the sites that have been past quarry operations, and kind of further some redevelopment objectives of the city with infrastructure and development incentives as needed. The district is a rehabilitation district, so it's a maximum life of 27 years. So I'll pause there and see if staff has anything further they'd like to add.
Mike Zimmerman, Economic Development Director for the City of Fitchburg. This is a great opportunity for us to reclaim those quarries that are really remnants of our township days, and it's going to put this land into productive use for industrial, clean industrial and light manufacturing, which we're in desperate need of additional acreage in those categories, not only to market to new prospects through RFPs, maybe through WEDC or MadRep, but also to have land available for some of our existing businesses. And two of the probably early projects out of the gate, if the TID is approved, is Sub-Zero with their corporate conference center on the lot north of the barn. And then General Beverage, once they finish the headquarters renovation and expansion that's currently underway, they will be looking at some point in time in the future to add some additional warehouse distribution capacity on a lot that they are acquiring or have acquired from Payne and Dolan just south of Cottonwood. So those are two projects that we'll probably see in more of the short term coming forward. We'd be happy to take any questions.
We'll go ahead.
So the parcels that are currently in TID 9 that are moving over to TID 18, do they flip over there so that their new base value is whatever it is currently, and they ride the full 27 years?
That's correct.
Okay.
Looks like an exciting plan. I know that those quarries are in real need of reclaiming. Mm-hmm. Do you anticipate a potential expansion of the TID in the future, or do you see this kind of being the boundaries?
I think it depends on what are the future land uses identified in the South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plan. If there's an expansion of Business Park to the south of Lacey Road, then I think there would be a potential to look at an amendment, a territory amendment for this TID.
And the only thing I'll add is you can add or subtract territory from a TID district 4 times per TID district under state law, as long as you're in compliance with that 12% test.
And then, do we know approximately where we'll be on the 12% test if this district passes? I mean, will we have capacity to create more TIDs, I guess is my question.
Yes, so with this TID district, you're estimated based on current values to be at about 5.7% towards the 12%.
That's inclusive of this
That's
of this
correct.
project. Oh wow.
So that calculation gets updated each year when equalized values are released by the Department of Revenue in August. So each August, that new value limit report comes out.
I remember when we were hovering right around 12%. So that's where those TID sales, I guess, made a big difference. Any other questions from Bill?
Yeah, so I was reading through some of the details and wondering about some of the eligible project costs, and one of them that caught my eye was, a new gas line or, redistributing the gas lines. And, I'm not a fan of installing new fossil fuel usage, in 2024 plus. I didn't see anything in there specifically about energy efficiency, building insulation, geothermal, solar, that sort of thing. And you had mentioned that there are some limitations as to what are eligible costs that come down from the state, but the city and developer can also hash out what actual project costs they want to look at. Could you explain some more of that?
Sure. So the TID statutes and the project plan define costs kind of through the lens of how the city would expend funds. So, whether it's a gas improvement and energy type improvement is a TID eligible expense. So if the city would be undertaking that cost, it would kind of be a specific energy improvement. If a developer is going to undertake those costs and the city is going to reimburse the developer for some of those improvements, that's going to be characterized as a development incentive. And that really holds true for any expense that gets reimbursed by a developer. So if a developer pays for a street improvement and gets reimbursed from that through tax increment generated from that project, the expenditure isn't classified as a street improvement, it's classified as a developer incentive because the developer paid for it. If the city pays for the street, then it's characterized as a street improvement. So that's kind of how the expenditures broadly get determined, is whether or not the city is the one expending the funds or if they're reimbursing the developer. But you have that flexibility to, on either situation, to undertake a broader array of energy improvements.
All right. Any other questions? All right. We can go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of resolution R7224, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. See you at council.
Thank you.
All right, on to the next item, 6E, resolution R8024, purchase of 8 vehicle speed feedback signs.
I move approval.
Motion by Alder Wheeler. And Tim, you going to chat about this?
Sure. The Public Works Department and alders have received numerous requests for traffic calming in various neighborhoods throughout the city. Vehicle speeds in these locations have been observed to be higher than desired, both anecdotally and through data collection. Vehicle speed feedback signs have been shown to be effective at reducing vehicle speeds. 8 vehicle speed feedback signs will cost $42,199.46. Funding is available in CIP number 3450, which is the traffic calming program. We're looking for authorization of the purchase of 8 vehicle speedback signs from All Traffic Solutions to be installed at 2 locations in each district, with the locations being agreed to by city staff and district alders. And we're looking for authorization in the amount of $42,199.46 from the previously mentioned traffic calming program. With that, does anyone have any questions?
Well, how long will this take to be delivered? Are they gonna take a long time, or are they?
I believe 4 to 6 weeks out.
Okay. I'm just used to, 6 to 8 months, so nice to know that it won't take that long. Jim?
Yeah, Tim, you have an idea already of what locations they're going to be at?
No, we do not.
I have a couple ideas because we're already getting some input.
Sure.
Bill?
Yeah, okay, so beyond the initial $42,000, what are the ongoing costs? I saw some verbiage in there about a 12-month subscription to traffic suite application.
So that there is an ongoing cost. Let me pull that up.
If I can jump in real quick while you're looking that up, we did include that cost in the 2024 budget, so it has already been incorporated for kind of the perpetuate ongoing costs from here on out
Oh, for in perpetuity.
until council chooses differently. But
Okay.
yes, it's in there now.
Okay, good.
So that's to utilize their software to pull the data and analyze it.
Would there be any value in purchasing additional speed boards, but without that subscription, just for the placebo effect? Or, I mean, it's a real effect, but, putting up more signs would calm traffic more. And if we didn't want to spend the money on data collection from all of them, is that a consideration?
Yeah, that is a consideration.
I mean, I don't know what the breakout is between the purchase of the speed board and the annual subscription for the software. But if it's, if that annual subscription is a good chunk of the change, that might be something we want to think about.
It looks like it's about $1,500 for the 12-month subscription per speed board.
Oh, wow. Significant. Jim?
And Tim, would that data go onto the website so people can just go there and look it up when they're, if they're concerned about speed?
Yeah, that's something we're working on, is to make this data more available for residents. So that's something our traffic engineering division, when they have the spare time to kind of work on the website to put all these reports and data where the public can access it pretty freely. So yeah, eventually, in a point in the near future, we intend to have that data available.
All right, seeing no more questions, I think we can go take a vote. All in favor of resolution R8024, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Tim. Moving on to 6F, resolution R8224, amending the 2024 general fund budget, LTE police services intern.
I'll move approval of resolution R8224.
Motion by Alder Jetzer. Turn it over to you.
Policing industry is facing some significant recruitment and retention challenges. So we have typically in the past offered an unpaid internship, usually tied to college, for some level of credits for a college student to take time out of their summer or their semester to work within the police department. What we've been seeing through our multiple hiring processes over the past year or so is there are highly qualified candidates that still are missing a little bit of perhaps life experience, additional education, additional experience just in policing in general. So what we'd like to do, and perhaps they don't have the opportunities that some others in college may have as far as having that ability to get college credits through an unpaid internship. So take some of the salary savings that we've been experiencing within the police department and offer a paid internship to hopefully entice, be a little bit more creative with our recruitment efforts to develop some of those candidates that we've seen in the hiring processes that maybe just need a little extra experience, life experience, job experience to hopefully develop them within the police department and eventually hire them on if successful, if they want to maintain employment with the city.
Great, thank you. Questions?
Just a comment. I think this is a great idea. I'd rather see a paid intern than an unpaid intern.
Can I ask, is this a stipend or is it hourly?
It's an hourly rate of $17.77. That's the base intern rate through the city of Fitchburg.
Great. And then do they, like, how does the internship work? Do they shadow an officer or?
So right now, most of the time, the internship that if you were to get college degree or college credits for, it's usually structured. We kind of try to identify what's necessary from the college's perspective. But most of the time, they'll shadow officers. They'll participate in a project that maybe the police department is looking to identify if having pay at the pump gas stations is more beneficial or reduces our calls for service, which is one of the projects we've done in the past. They'll have experience with investigations, with our telecommunicators, with record staff, so they get a multifaceted view of what a law enforcement agency actually is all about.
Great. Jim?
I think they're worth their weight in gold if you get the right one. My experience with Madison has been, we've actually had interns who have set up systems that we still use today that make our work more efficient. So hopefully we can get an intern, and then we can, if they're good enough, we can actually hire that person.
We're actually currently in the process of hiring one of our previous interns, and she had been an intern 2 years ago and has essentially stuck around for the last 2 years until now she's going to be graduating. So hopefully she'll fulfill her conditions and we'll be able to bring her on. Good.
That's great. You anticipate being able to fill this position for the summer?
That's the hope. We're going to work with human resources to reach out to some of those applicants that put in for the police officer position to see if they would be interested in the police intern, as well as some of our part-time dispatch interviewees to reach back out to them, and then also open it up to everybody to see if anybody else is interested.
Fantastic. All right, seeing no more questions, we can go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of Resolution R8224, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks so much. On to the next one. 6G, Resolution R9324, approving change orders for legal services with Cybel Law Offices. This is a direct referral.
I move approval.
Motion by Alder Wheeler. Misty?
Yes. So this one is a little unique. It is a purchasing resolution, but the funding for it has technically already been authorized by the council. Back when we hired Attorney Seibel to represent us in this case, we included all of these direct costs, but we hadn't identified a vendor yet. So now we'd like to take that money that was authorized there and put it towards this specific vendor. So since it's more than $25,000 for the person we're actually going to make the payment to, it comes back through council for a purchasing resolution. These are the vendors that were recommended by Attorney Seibel, obviously who has the best interest to make sure we're well represented in this case.
Great. Questions? All in favor of Resolution R9324, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. On to item 7, announcements. Our next finance meeting is May 28th, 2024. Any other announcements? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:43 p.m. Thank you.